got a comment from Mike Wright. It's a question a lot of gamers have been asking, and honestly, it deserves a proper answer. Sony have watched trends of people using digital downloads. This is a trend that started with PS Plus and Xbox started with Game Pass. We've been guided into digital downloads. And why does it cost more as there's no box or disc to make, no artwork? And marketing for the game it's same and they own license or IP, so they ain't paying extra for that. Server space ain't an issue as they rent it in huge numbers or own it outright. Can someone please explain this? And I responded with a single word. Yeah. Course, Mike, I can explain it. An answer's gonna piss you off more than you're expecting. Alright, you lot. Now, fair warning, everything I talk about here includes Xbox and Nintendo in some cases. I'm just using PlayStation to point out examples, so video don't drag on longer than it needs to. Just thought I'd throw that out, for some twonk thinks I'm hating on PlayStation. So why does a digital game cost same as, or sometimes more than a physical copy when there's no disc, no box, no printed artwork, no shipping, no tangible? Surface level answer most people give is cost 30% storefront cut covers all of that. Which is true, but that's where most people stop and they miss full picture. That 30% platform cut that Sony, Microsoft and Nintendo take on every digital sale on their storefronts covers hosting the game on their servers, maintaining storefront, handling download infrastructure, payment processing, customer support, all of it. And look, in isolation, it's not an unreasonable number. Running a digital storefront at that scale costs real money. Servers, bandwidth, security, constant updates to the store itself. That all has to be paid for somehow, and that 30% has been standard for over a decade. But it doesn't need to be 30%. Epic proved that when they launched their store with a 12% cut, and as of June 2025, they went even further. Developers now keep 100% of revenue on the first $1 million in annual sales per title on Epic Games Store. After that, it drops to 88-12 split. So a small or mid-sized studio making $800,000 on the launch keeps every single penny of that on Epic. That same game on Steam, Valve takes $240,000 off top. On PlayStation, Sony takes $240,000. Same game, same revenue, massively different outcomes for people who actually made things. That traditional defence of that 30% on console has always been subsidy argument. Consoles have historically been sold at a loss or close to cost price, and platform holder recoups that investment through software sales and services of a console's lifetime. PS3 cost Sony over $800 per unit to manufacture when it launched at $800 to $600. They were eating hundreds of dollars per console sold, banking on software revenue to make it work. And that was a legitimate model for a long time. But that argument has been getting thinner and thinner with every passing year, and in 2026 it's got holes you could drive a lorry through. PS5 launched at $500 in 2020. By August 2025, Sony bumped every model by $50. Then in April 2026 they hit it again, with standard PS5 now $650. Digital edition is $600. And PS5 Pro, which launched in November 2024 at $700, is now sitting at $900. That's a $200 increase in under 2 years on a mid-gen refresh. Every previous PlayStation console got cheaper over its life cycle. PS5 generation has inverted that completely. So if hardware is no longer being subsidised and prices are going up, not down, where exactly is justification for maintaining a 30% cut on software? Subsidy argument were already on live support, price hikes killed it. But here's something I genuinely don't think enough people have clocked. Everyone talks about 30% storefront cut on digital as though same percentage applies to physical, and it roughly does. Retailers take their margin, typically around 30% at wholesale price, give or take depending on deal. But what most people don't realise is that cost of manufacturing physical disc, case, artwork, printing, logistics of shipping those units to distribution centres, warehousing, freight to retail stores, all of that is extra. It's on top of retailers' cut. Industry figures put physical manufacturing and shipping at roughly 5% of retail price for first-party publishers. And for third-party publishers, they're also adding a platform licensing fee of around 15% to Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo, on top of retail cut and manufacturing. Dr. Serkan Toto, a game industry analyst, broke this down recently, and numbers are stark. On a standard $70 game, a third-party studio takes home roughly $49 from a digital sale. That same game sold physically, about $35. For first-party publishers like Sony selling their own games on their own store, gap is even more obscene. They keep full $70 on digital sale because they own storefront. Physical, after retailer cut and manufacturing, they're looking at about $45.50. So digital ain't just same price we out to box. It's significantly, measurably, provably more profitable per unit for everyone in chain except consumer. And that is why physical is being killed off. Not because gamers all decided the preferred downloads, or disk drives are outdated technology, or even because industry's moving forward into some brave new future of convenience. It's because physical media is a less profitable channel, and platform holders want you locked into more profitable ones. Sony shipped nearly 70 million physical discs in 2025. That's 70 million units of a product they've decided ain't making them enough money per sale. And when they stop producing discs entirely in January 2028, they're just removing competition. Because right now, Tweaker's price tracking study out at Netherlands proved that PS5 games are almost never cheaper on PlayStation Store than at retail. Physical copies routinely undercut digital by 30 to 50 euros because shops have to compete with each other. Game has to undercut Amazon. Amazon has to undercut Shop too, and prices come down. PlayStation Store don't have to compete with anyone. There's one price, Sony's price. Take it or leave it. And once disc is gone, that last bit of competitive pressure disappears with it. Now there's another scam that console gamers have just accepted as normal, paying to play online. Because it's genuinely indefensible when you actually look at what you're paying for. On PS3, online multiplayer was completely free. Sony used that as a major selling point against Xbox 360, because Microsoft were charging for Xbox Live Gold. It was one of the key reasons people chose PlayStation over Xbox in that generation. Free online play, no strings attached. Then E3 2013 happened, and Sony announced PS4. Everyone cheered because it was cheaper than Xbox One and didn't have always online requirement. Buried in small print of that announcement were one little detail. PS4 online multiplayer now requires PlayStation Plus subscription. Sony saw Microsoft printing money by charging for something that should be free, saw revenue it generated, and thought, yeah, we'll have some of that. And justification they trotted out, better service and free games every month. But better service argument falls apart second you understand how online gaming actually works. Sony and Microsoft don't run multiplayer servers for the vast majority of games on their platforms. Developers and publishers do. EA runs EA servers. Ubisoft runs Ubisoft servers. Activision ran their own servers until Microsoft bought them, and now it's a first-party ecosystem. Only games where Sony is actually providing server infrastructure are their own first-party titles. So when you're paying your PS Plus subscription to play FIFA or Call of Duty or Rainbow Six Siege Online, that money's not gone at servers you're connecting to. Those servers are run, maintained and paid for by publisher. Your subscription money goes to Sony, but privilege of accessing infrastructure that someone else built and someone else pays for. And then there's free-to-play exemption, which is a bit that completely sinks all argument. Games like Fortnite, Warzone, Roblox, Apex Legends. You can play all of those online on PlayStation without PS Plus. No subscription needed. If subscription fee were genuinely about covering server infrastructure costs, why would free-to-play games be exempt? Servers still exist, bandwidth still gets used, infrastructure's identical. Reason free-to-play games are exempt is because Sony knows that if they gated Fortnite behind a paywall, kids would riot, parents would stop buying PlayStations, and platform would hemorrhage its youngest, most engaging demographic overnight. So exemption proves it were always about what they could get away with charging for. And right now, PlayStation Plus is pulling in around $6 billion a year across roughly 50 million subscribers. Xbox Game Pass hit $5 billion in revenue for fiscal year 2025 with around 35 million subscribers. These aren't service fees. You've already bought console, you've already bought game, you've already paid for your internet connection. Now you need to pay a monthly subscription to use all three of those things together. None of this exists on PC. You buy a game, you play a game online, that's it. No gatekeeper, no toll, no monthly Tito to Game Newell for honour of connecting to a server that Valve don't even operate. And before anyone chirps up with subscription-based games like Warcraft and other MMORPGs, this isn't about those. We're talking about everything outside of that model. So where does this actually leave console gamers? In a worse position that most of them realise. Physical discs were the last form of competitive pressure keeping digital prices honest. Retailers competing with each other drove prices down. Used market gave games a second life and let budget-conscious players access titles they couldn't afford at launch. Resale value meant you could buy a game, finish it, sell it, and put that towards next one. All of that goods went physical dies. No retailer competition, no used market, no resale, no lending a game to your mate. You don't own a game, you own a license to access it for as long as Sony decides to keep it on their servers. And if the deal list it, tough. You paid 70 quid for permission, and permission got revoked. Now Mike asks, can someone please explain this? An explanation is 5 words. Cost they don't have to. 30% digital cut covers legitimate costs. That much is true. But refusal to lower digital prices below physical, subscription paywall for online play and infrastructure that don't provide, killing at physical market that were only thing keeping the prices honest, that's margin optimization at consumers' expense. And worst part is most people have just accepted it. They've been conditioned to believe that paying for online access is normal, that digital prices matching physical is reasonable, and that ownership is an outdated concept. But it's not normal, it's not reasonable, and it's definitely not in your interest. Now, there's a good case to be made for keeping physical market alive, and I mean that, but that's a whole video on its own, and it's coming, so keep your eyes peeled for that. For now, if you like this video, YouTube says you'll like this and next, so go check that out, and I'll see you there, you magnificent.